I'm Kevin Lore, and you are listening to the Kotatsu Podcast. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Kotatsu Podcast, and I'm Kevin, your host. And today, thank you for coming on to the first episode. And I have an amazing guest. After a short little while of study abroad, she decided to take a gamble on to teach in Japan for about 4 years. And I'd like to welcome Chi Chang. Chi, thank you so much for being here.
Hi, thank you for having me. And hi to everyone that is listening to the podcast. I'm Chi. I'm currently working at my local university as an assistant, and I also work on the side as a copywriter, helping online brands and businesses hone their messaging so they can develop a better empathic and compassionate relationship with their customers. Nice to meet you all.
Thank you so much for that. And any dedications for anybody before we start?
Yeah, so thank you. This is my first time on like a podcast ever. So I really just wanted to give out some dedications. First to my grandma, Shua Lore. She was one of the strongest person I've ever known. And then second dedication is my dog Yogi, who was one of my best friends ever and who taught me how to just have fun and be carefree. And then the third dedication is just the younger version of myself that went through a lot of challenges and a lot of growth within those 4 years that I was overseas. And then last but not least, to everyone that supported me, took care of me, and cared about me, and love and support me. Thank you.
I would also like to give a dedication to you. You actually helped me a lot, pushing me through for this podcast and also helping me get in the door through what you did. So thank you so much. So this first episode, it's also a dedication to you, Chi. So thank you so much. Yeah, no worries. So let's get into it. So teaching in Japan. So we are in the same program, which is the JET program.
Mhm.
Can you go ahead and just explain what is JET and how did you heard about JET?
Yeah, so for those of you that don't know, Kevin and I were in JET program, which is basically the Japan Exchange and Teaching Program where people can apply to teach English in Japan, or they can apply to be a coordinator. Yeah,
English with
English
the
teacher.
quotations around it. Yeah.
Or they could be a coordinator of international relationships, or they could be a sports assistant teacher.
Yeah, it's SEA, yeah, sports assistance teacher or something like that.
Yeah. And so you're also a cultural ambassador from your country to Japan, and just making sure that both countries have like a good relationship with each other.
And how did you hear about JET? Did anybody appoint you to it or anything?
I heard about it from one of the teachers that had gone through that program, because when I went to do a short 2-week study abroad in Japan when I was still in college, they were actually one of our a tour guide. And so they spoke about their experience, and that's how I found out about the program. And so they were very encouraging, like, oh, if you ever get the chance to apply for JET, you should do it. It's a great experience.
As of right now, if the audience don't know, Chi is back in the States and I'm actually here in Japan. So one thing about this program that a lot of people or the program express on is everyone has their own experience, and that we'll go into the details of why, but we're going to go ahead and talk about Chi's experience a little bit. Where did you get placed at again?
I was placed in Sanukishi, or Sanuki City, in Kagawa-ken, or Kagawa Prefecture, which Kagawa Prefecture is the smallest prefecture in all of Japan, but it's also one of the safest places to be
Is
in.
it one of those down south, right, near Kyushu?
It's like below Osaka.
Oh, okay. I think I'd rather be down there right now because not to be rude, but if some of my colleagues see this, not to be rude, but I'm in Hokkaido, and as a Californian person, I never lived in snow. This is my second time in living in the snow. Driving on the road is very scary. I have done 180s already.
It is hard.
Yeah. And the winter is kind of brutal for me, but the summer is perfect. It's not that hot though.
Thankfully, Kagawa-ken has the Seto Inland Sea. It's it's protected by it, and so it's super terrible earthquakes or storms like they do in Hokkaido or like Tokyo or Osaka.
Yeah, we don't get much like earthquakes here too, so I'm very thankful for that.
Yeah.
It's a blessing in disguise. I'm not like in Tokyo because when we were in quarantine, I think like the first second day there, we felt an earthquake midway our
Ooh,
training
that's
during
scary. Yeah.
quarantine. Yeah, we were just on our chats online. We're like, oh my god, did you guys feel that? So we're making sure none of us are crazy or something.
Yeah.
When you arrive, was there any like culture shock?
Not really. No, because I was already there the summer before. And so I kind of knew, and I had taken a few Japanese courses, language courses. And so I kind of knew like you can't really eat food when you're walking. Like you need to stop somewhere and eat.
I have done that
Yeah.
many
Or
times.
like, just
Yeah.
different ways to say thank you. There's like the casual way, there's like the formal way, and then just how to kind of like
Yes.
I don't know, just how to act in certain situations. Yeah.
That's kind of difficult too. Like coming from English speaking countries, there's we do have a certain formal way to speak, but then again in Japan, there's just different
Oh,
ways of
yeah,
speaking
yeah.
to who you're
Mhm.
speaking to. If you're like the customer or you're like the client or something, like it's just so it's called keigo. I
Yeah.
remember right. Yeah, keigo is like very difficult. I'm like, oof, get that away from me. My Japanese is like kindergarten or preschool
Oh, this is
Japanese,
bringing back
so
so many memories.
I'm still learning. Yeah, it gives me headaches. I'm like, I'm gonna go to the store and get some salampot
Yeah.
out of my head. So, like, there was a difference from like I noticed now because 10 years ago when I came to Japan too, there's a difference of living here and there's a difference of visiting as a tourist. So, can you give us like a little bit of difference in like the pros and cons of that?
Well, it really depends because like in
Hmm.
in like social media, movies and whatnot, like you see like the big cities and all the wonderful things that you can go do,
Yeah,
but in reality, you're living and working here, so it's like most times you're not gonna be placed in the big cities. Most times it's gonna be in the
yeah,
countryside, not necessarily like super countryside where it's like middle of nowhere, like no stores, your neighbor is like miles away, whatever. It's more of like you feel very secluded and there's not a lot of things that you can do. And you'd have to like take like an hour train ride to the big city in order to kind of like do some stuff, hang out with your friends or whatever.
for some of us, it's 2 hours plane
Yeah.
ride. And I feel like, yeah, Jet, it's catered towards to like those who are fresh out of college and kind of
Mm.
figure out what they want to do. And this is like a good experience for them to explore, where they kind of sell you this dream to live in Japan and teach English. But when you got here, it's like everything was great. And then you'll figure out, oh, there's so much stuff I did not know.
So, I mean, like majority of us or us, like majority of the people that go through JET, the majority are like young college, like fresh out of, college kids or students or young adults. And then, there are some people that are older as well. So there is a good range, but I'd say, majority of the people that go through the program are, fresh college graduates. So they're like 21 to like 23, 24. Yeah.
Yeah, when I came on to yeah, when we were meeting up with all the other Jets, I'm like asking how old are everyone? I'm like, they're like, yeah, I just graduated at 21. I'm like, oh, I graduated when I was like what, probably 26, and I'm like, I'm taking things really slow, you guys. So yeah, again, everybody has their own journey and their experience, and with that, like with experience and work, how different is it compared to like the American side?
Well, in Japan, it's very heavy on the work culture. Like it's very, I remember one of my English teachers that I worked with, she would tell me like the three basically main pillars of a Japanese person's life. Like the three main important things are you get a job, you pay taxes, and like you have kids or something like that. Like you motivate your kids to like go to school or something like that. So it's basically like work is very, I could be wrong on the last one, but like work is very much like pretty much your life. Your coworkers or your teachers, they would work like 10 plus hours a day, or like they'd be working on a Saturday and Sunday is the only day off.
Yeah, I figured that out when I got here that teachers does not get holidays off, and we have to for us we're treated as teachers, and some of us don't go to school or we're placed at the BOE, which is the Board of Education, which is known
Yeah.
as the school district office. And even though we don't have work, we just have to pretend that we have work. So the work is everything because here it's a little different from the Western world because it's literally like the American dream that our parents kind of like
Mhm.
see us doing, right? You just get a good education, get a degree, you go into work, and then you kind of settle down, buy a house, something like that, and that's what that is. But I think for some of us now in the Western world, not really going towards that path anymore. So it's a culture shock to us as well.
Yeah, and just the hierarchy system when it comes to your job, it's very, very enforced. So it's like, I remember with my Japanese English teachers where they're like, they couldn't go home at the end of the day until the principal or the VP goes home, you know? And even then, after the VP goes home, like the next person on the list, they would kind of just like quietly excuse himself to go home. Like it wasn't kind of like, oh yeah, like 5 o'clock, I'm done, I'm out, or like 4 o'clock, we're good. It's like
Yeah.
they would stay late, 7, 8, 9, 10. When the VP or principal goes home, that's like, okay, it's our cue. We can kind of leave.
And it's not just for teachers as well. It's also for like big corporation, like businessman or business salaryman and all of them as well. And yeah, that's where it's kind of shocked to me because, well, our jobs, our positions
Mhm.
starts at 8 or 8:30 and then ends at around 4:30. And even on my days, like I'm at the office, if by like 4:30 they don't see me pack up, they're like, "Hey, stop working. Just go home." So I'm like, okay, I guess I'll go. And again, different people like their experience are differently because I have some friends who are in the
Mhm.
a bigger city next to me. One of them asked him, "I would like to leave now." They're like, "Sorry, you can't." So they just have to like sit there, pretend they're doing something, or they kind of just walk around the school. And I'm like, that's kind of sad. So
But they make you feel bad for
yeah,
leaving when it's your time to leave, or like leaving maybe like 15 minutes after your time is up. Like they just kind of make you feel bad.
yeah, because like Japan is like a collective system, right? There's a saying I remember: if the nail that sticks out is the one that stands out, right?
Put that down in place. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's why nobody wants to be different here.
Yeah.
So I kind of learned that on the way, that hierarchy and very still structural, go by the books. Let's also jump into that, like how is teaching different?
So it depends, like because every year the teachers and like the city workers they get rotated, right? And so you never know if you're gonna the same Japanese English teachers or like coworkers or supervisors for next year. Because like as you know, like the school system in Japan, they start in what is it, April and they end in the following March. March is when they get switched around and everybody finds out. But sometimes you have English teachers, Japanese English teachers that love working with you. They're comfortable speaking with you, they're comfortable letting you take the lead. And then there are those that don't feel comfortable working with you. They don't want to work with you, or they are intimidated because you're a native English speaker, or they just don't really want to work with you because you're a foreigner, or maybe you don't have the experience that they have. So it just kind of depends.
That's another culture shock for me where I didn't know that public workers or public sectors gets rotated. So every year you're like so comfortable working with some people and then the next year they're like gone. It's like a relationship, right? It's like you just ghosted me.
It's this really nice work relationship that you've established, especially when
Yeah.
you're on really good terms and you vibe with each other.
Yeah.
Like it also breaks the students' hearts because what if they really like that teacher? And I remember like after my first year, because I had really, really great teachers my first year. And so when I found out that they get switched, and they did get switched, I remember being very depressed for the next few months. And it didn't make me feel any better with the new teachers because they didn't really utilize me. I didn't really have any classes much. I had like maybe one classes a day, or like one class a day or two if I was lucky. And then I would just sit at my desk and try to keep myself busy.
See, everyone's experience is different because I had a teacher at the elementary and it was amazing because she was like older and she was like a mom to me. And like I told her that I had like a accident and I injured my knee or my ankle and she would brought me medicine and I'm like, you don't have to. And then I feel bad. I remember Christmas. She gave me Christmas stuff as well. I'm like, and that's the point where we went into like a gift exchange war. Japan does Japanese people do this. They do an exchange
Yeah.
gift war. So the next thing I know, they said, yeah, the Board of Education, they're like cutting budgets, so she couldn't come back. And we have like the one of the junior high school teacher
Oh,
come and teach, which is great. We have a good relationship, but it sucks
yeah.
because
Mhm.
they get rotated or they just don't have budget. So
Yeah, it does. And on that note, you bring up a good point. Like if you end up working overseas in Japan as a teacher or whatever, like make sure you bring some little snacks for your new like coworkers and revisor. Like nothing super major, just like maybe like little like bag of jellies or like chocolates. Like chocolate is really popular.
To be honest, I feel really bad. I totally forgot about like omiyage when I came. I feel so bad because
Yeah.
I should have brought omiyage, and then so from my office people at the Board of Education, I think I went somewhere and I brought them back omiyage.
I mean, like, no, when you first go over there, it's not mandatory. But like when you leave Japan, let's say to come back to visit family or to like go visit other countries, it's always nice to kind of come back and bring them some gifts. Be like, oh, thank you for working so hard while I was out having fun.
Yeah, this is actually part of like a Japanese
Mhm.
culture. A lot of people don't talk about it. It's very hard to leave your work and to leave your work to others, and so it's like a little gift. It's just like showing appreciation for
Yeah.
other people.
I remember somebody, one of my ex co-ALTs, she was like from North Carolina, and so she brought like hot sauce as like a little gift.
Oh, that's
And
interesting.
I don't know if our Japanese coworkers at our board of education, like I don't know what they did with it. I hope they used it, but yeah, I thought that was interesting.
I hope they did. I would have used it because here there's like, even though I'm not supposed to be eating pepper, like a bottle of hot sauce would be nice. I think the hottest bottle of hot sauce they have is Tabasco.
Oh yeah, Tabasco is really popular there too.
And so I have to like find my own way to, make, Hmong pepper,
Yeah.
Southeast Asian pepper. So how was your first day of teaching?
I kind of maybe thought that they would know a bit more English because they study it from a younger age than we do when we study foreign language.
Yeah.
For some of us, you know. But my first day, they had me do a self introduction, and for like the whole 50 minutes, they wanted me to just do
Mhm.
an intro presentation, which looking back was not the best idea because my students, they're junior high school students, they don't know that much English. They're still learning the basics, and so they were just bombarded for like 50 minutes full of English. And they're just like, what on earth? Like, we just met you, we don't know you, and you're just speaking all this English. It doesn't make any sense. But I tried to have fun, and I made, a few of the kids laugh, and they enjoyed some of my PowerPoint slides and information. And I try to make it interactive too. Like, I make them like, guess, oh, how old am I? How many family members do I have? Like, which country am I from? So.
I did the same thing as well, and it was just so shocking because they did not understand what was I saying, and that's when it hit me. I was like, "Oh shit!" Like they are not at that level. They are like probably not kindergarten level, and it was a fourth grade
Wow.
class. So midway, I had to step down a little bit, and then that class, I was like, "Okay, calm down."
Yeah, fourth grade is when they're learning like their ABCs, and then they have like certain topics that they learn like each week or something like colors, shapes, and what's interesting is like for the junior high school kids, I use more English, but like the basic English
Hmm.
that they would understand. They've like had studied so far. And then for elementary school, I majority of the time I would speak in Japanese, like basic Japanese,
Yeah,
like good morning,
yeah.
like I'm happy, like how are you?
Yeah, I try to use English as much
Me.
as
Yeah.
possible, yeah, to for them to stick in their head. Because every day I ask them, "How are you?" and they're still like, "Huh? Like what?" It's like one ear and out the other. Now I kind of know how some of our teachers feel.
The other thing too is it's like that what we weren't aware of at that time. It's
Hmm.
like they don't really get experience speaking a foreign language
Yeah,
or meeting somebody that's like from a foreign country. Sometimes there's a lot of like, huh? Like, I'm sorry, I don't know what you're saying. Like, I don't know.
like we're also in their position too, as right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because we're like that some people would speak Japanese to us. We're like, "Huh? We have no idea what's going on."
Like a lot of my little kids, like the elementary kids, whenever I would say something, they would just be like, huh? Wakana. And I don't know.
And
Yeah.
sometimes they will speak to me and and this is the cutest shit, like some of the cutest things. They will come up to you and just tell you random things like my
Yeah.
dad's birthday is on this day. Oh yeah, I have one younger brother. You kind of understand, and then next
Yeah.
thing you know, they're gonna tell you something full in Japanese. You're like, you
Yeah.
kind of just nod your head. Okay.
Yeah, especially the kindergartens, you don't really understand the pronunciation because like they're still learning how to like, speak and like Japanese and stuff. And like, I'm so sorry, like you're so cute and I wish I can understand what you're saying, but I just can't understand your pronunciation. Like, but you're really cute.
And then it's even worse when they like cry and you're a teacher and you're trying to help them what's going on, but you just don't know what to do.
Yeah. Okay, it's okay, you can cry.
I feel really bad. Like sometimes they'll cry if they don't understand English, and I told
Yeah.
them it's not your fault. I have to go tell a Japanese teacher, I'm like, hey, tell this kid, it's not their
Yeah.
fault. They understand, okay?
I don't know if you like to your kids too, like your students. Look, English is hard. Japanese is hard too. It's okay.
Yeah, everybody has a bias. I said, no, English is easy. And they're like, no, Japanese is easy. I'm like, no, it's not. So there's that argument going back and forth. Did you get any gifts from your kids randomly?
Oh yeah, a lot. Like they would make the young kids too. They would make a lot of origami, just like origami stuff, and they would just give it to you.
I got some origamis, but like the small ones. But recently I've been getting a lot of pictures,
Oh,
and they're like the cutest thing
like
because
they're being drawn, like they
yeah,
draw
they
the
draw me like
pictures.
full out body, but they're being so generous. Like I'm a very big
Oh.
person, and they make me like very like skinny or masculine. I'm like, oh, bless your soul. You don't have to, but I'm gonna stick them on my wall later. But yeah, I have like so many pictures of me being drawn.
That's so cute. Like,
It's really
and
adorable.
like sometimes they'll hand me paper airplanes, especially the boys. Like they'll make paper airplanes, like really uneven wings, or like a super big like airplane or paper plane that they made, and they'll just be like, "Here, it's a present, it's a gift," and I'm just like, "Well,
Oh,
thanks," you know.
I'd rather get a paper airplanes from the boys because boys, they're being very touchy
Oh yeah,
sometimes. Here, and I tell them better not touch me
yeah.
because I'm gonna tell the vice principal, and they're scared of the vice principal.
For some of the listeners that don't know this, is like in Japan, the kids they can be touchy. So there's like what they call skinship, like touchy. So like even the kids, they would come and hold your hand or like squeeze your arms or just like they're innocent, but like they understand too. Like they'll say, oh, like you had chubby cheeks. They'll pinch your cheeks or like they'll be like your arm is squishy. They'll like squeeze your arm and you're just like, oh man, why?
I think some of them will come and poke my stomach like I'm the that dough commercial mascot. I'm like, stop. Like the X, I will make my hand fingers into an X. That's what it means no in Japan. So it feels weird because like in the Western world, of course, you're not supposed to have any kind of skinship with students.
There's also like inappropriate touching, like the kids they'll come and just put their hands on you on like certain parts of you that's just like, no, that's not okay, like don't, and you have to tell them like that's not okay, don't put your hands there, like just or like don't do that. I once had a kid, I think it was like I was teaching third graders and I was in the middle of teaching and he was one of the kids that wasn't he
Uh
like
huh.
he didn't do good with sitting still. And so he would kind of like walk around, run. And one time I
Hmm.
was just teaching and he came around and like I felt something like wet touch my elbow. And I'm just like, what is that? And I look and like turns out he had like kissed
Oh.
my elbow. And I was just
Oh,
like,
girl. No,
oh,
no, no, no.
I just froze because I was like, wait, what just happened? And all the kids, they just looked at me. They're like, what did he just do? And I'm just like, okay, snap out of it. And so I was just kind of like, go sit down.
Can't really like do anything. You're in the middle of teaching. You sometimes you'll just froze. Like for me, it wasn't during class, but it was before class. Like there's that
Hmm.
grace period for classes. I would say hello to the kids. These are the fourth graders. Last year they were third, but what happened was these are the kids who kind of had like a lot of them has like you can say ADHD or some kind of type of way where they don't really like calm down. I know one of them purposely to try to just hit me or to try to touch me in the private area, and I got really mad. And I trying to chase after them, trying to say like talk to them, but they ran out of the classroom. But of course, when like class starts, I told the main that kid over there, like, can you tell him that it's not good to touch me like that? And he actually said it to the whole class, hey, touching is very bad, so don't do that. And he said like AOTs are very nice, they come all the way from their countries to come teach you English, so try to be nice with them. So after that, of course, like all of them would be nice and they were trying to come hug me. Well, they're like fourth graders, but I think I know what they're trying to do, so it feels weird. I'm like, I know what you're trying to do, get away from me.
They're used to seeing you as their English teacher, so they really just like you as well. And I feel like when they're like from nursery to I think third or fourth grade, it's okay if you hug them, they hug you, like, oh, like thank you, like we appreciate you, we like you. And then once they're like older, it's more like hey touch or like high five.
Yeah, or a high five. When you see them into elementary school, like fifth or sixth grade, like so in Japan, sixth grade is actually part of elementary, and then seventh grade, which is the first year of in junior high school in Japan, you'll see them change dramatically. Growing up, you'll see them so hyper the last 2 years or the last semester. And then April starts, they went to like junior high and they're like very different. I'm like, who are you? Like, what happened to you?
It's kind of sad. Like they sort of become more, they become more mature because they take on more responsibility, and it's just like now things are getting serious. Like say goodbye to your childhood, you know?
Exactly. They just yank that away from you. I'm like, it's serious now. You're gonna have to take more tests. Everything is like they had to take more academic activities. They have Juku. Juku, you guys don't know, it's a cram school,
Oh
which
yeah.
is kind of like Kumon. Yeah, like these kids do a lot, and I'm like, they're
Mhm.
kids though. But then on the weekends, some of them will have fun. But other than that, there's a lot of pressure on them, and they're really tired. So I try to make things as fun as much as I can.
Yeah, it's also sad too when you see your student, where they have to study so hard and then they have like sports after school every single day. And then when you see them, it's just like they're just dead tired. And you're just like, you're so young. You're like 11, 12, 13 years old, and like you barely have energy to just lift your head. Like that's just really sad.
It's interesting when you can see them like that, and then I think it runs all the way into high school
Yeah.
like that, and then until they get into college. College is interesting because for them in college it's like vacation because it's easier and they can actually be
They get
themselves.
to have more fun and like I don't really know much about the college life in Japan, but like from the university students that I kind of interacted with when I studied abroad for like that short 2 weeks, it's more like they pretty much said, "Oh yeah, college is just fun."
Like, I mean, we have a little bit of fun in our college years too, but like it was also kind of like their version of high school and college together, where we had to cram for like essays and like
Yeah, college is
reports every
similar.
week, and but at the same time, we're like procrastinating. We're going out to go have fun.
But like college, like you still take it seriously too because you want to like pass and graduate.
Oh yeah, and like after college, it's like you have to dedicate yourself to a full time corporate
Mhm.
job or something. And unlike the U.S., we sometimes some of us don't even go into the field that we graduated with, like us. Like we both graduate with anthropologies, and here I am in Japan. What this is kind of like anthropology, you can say.
Yeah, you're studying the culture and language as well. I double majored in criminology too,
Oh,
and I'm
okay.
sort of kind of like I don't know how criminology kind of ties into my life experiences so far, but I mean, I guess I can see some things, but other than that, it's mostly like I feel like anthropology gave me more experiences and skills to apply to just everything so far.
If anthropology was never part of my studies, the American side of me would have rebelled more. You kind of just question like, oh my god, this is just so strange to me. Like, and you make yourself like the
Yeah,
center of the universe. But with the anthropology, kind of guide me. Okay, this is just how they grew up with and how they live here.
there's a meaning. There's a meaning
Yeah,
behind
yeah.
things. So going back to the whole school thing, in case people don't know, are you just assigned one school, a few schools? Like how does it work? So like for you, how many schools did you have or do you have?
Currently right now I have one elementary and the junior high school, but I share the junior high school with my co-ALT. For my elementary school, I think I have about 5 or 4 classes a day. So my schedules as of right now, I'm only at the junior high once a week, and depending on that week, I might have one or no 3 or 2 classes. So I don't really get to interact with the junior high school as much. Elementary school, I interact them with way more, so they're like my kids or like my baby brothers and sisters. So
Yeah.
I think Tuesdays I have 4 classes.
Mhm.
Wednesday I'm at the office. Thursday it's my busiest because I teach the third graders. I'm literally the T1, which we're not supposed to. We're gonna go into that later. And then after that I have fourth graders with a JT, which is the English Japanese teacher. And then back to Friday we have 5 classes.
Wow.
So yeah, for some reason we have like a bunch of like classes this time around. It will be nice to spend more time with the junior high school students just to improve their
Mhm.
English to help them with the high school because it's just gonna get a little bit harder from there.
So in total you have like two schools, right, that you go to?
Yeah, technically, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and so it really just, differs to like a lot of other English teachers. They might just have like one main school that they go to and that's it. Like they're there 99% of the time. Or like they'll have like a bunch of a variety of like nursery, kindergarten, elementary, whatever. For me, I had I had a good range. So my main school was a junior high school. And then I had, I think, because I had seven total schools that I like
Damn,
went
that's a
to.
lot. Damn.
Yeah. It's pretty good, like, the workload wasn't too much.
Hmm.
I had so 1 junior high school, and then I had, I think, yeah, 3 elementary schools and 2 kindergarten schools that I went to. And that was, I think, for, like, the first 2 or 3 years, and after that, they kinda merged 2 elementary schools together, 2 small ones, like 2 elementary,
Oh,
and
okay.
then they also gave me more nursery school, um or like I would go to like a center that was for nursery students as well as kindergarten students. Um, and then during my like into my fourth year, because with the pandemic, a lot of the teachers left, right? So the
Yeah.
remaining teachers had to kind of like take on additional schools. And so I went from 7 schools to, I think, was it like 13, 14, or like 15 schools, because I took on, you know, my
That's like
ex,
double.
yeah, one of my ex
Oh my
co-eds
god.
like schools, because I guess I lived kind of closer to them,
Uh-huh.
to like her town. Um, yeah, so it was like 2 junior high schools. I think it was like 2 additional elementary, and then 2 or 3 additional kindergarten, and like 1 nursery. Yeah, and that was a lot. Like
Wow.
I was burnt out.
I can barely handle like some of the classes I have, but like, damn, what's 7 to like 14 schools? Like, I think I'll be burnt out for the end of like the week, and I'll just be dead again on Monday.
I did share that co-LT's junior high school with the other co-LT that was
Mm.
there, but um, it's like I still had, 5, 6 other schools to go to. Yeah, it was a lot. Yeah.
Work is when it comes to that, it's a lot, and like sometimes I think there's some cases where you have to stay longer at school too when you're not supposed to, but they make you do it, and they'll give you like overtime. But
Mhm.
here, overtime, it's not like in the States, I guess, where they pay you. Here, it's like they give you overtime, which you can request to get off.
Yeah, or like you can leave work early on this day. For me, sometimes like I was really thankful because I would have some classes finish before I have to take the bus back to the Board of Education. So for those who don't know, sometimes you get a car while you're in Japan. Sometimes you don't, and you have to take public transportation or take a bike, or have your supervisor or somebody from your Board of Education drop you off and pick you up.
So yeah, I have a car, so in a small town, so I have to get a car. But I have to go. It's interesting because I have to also drive the work car, which is the city hall's car. They have cars, the public cars. I have to go to the city hall, grab the keys, and then now it changed. The laws changes, so we have to actually use our alcohol breathalyzer to check our alcohol intake
Oh, I
before we
didn't
take
know
the
that.
car. Yeah, it just recently changed. I think last year. I think somewhere
Dang.
around last. Yeah. So we check our alcohol breathalyzer, and then we have to show it to like take a picture and show it to our supervisor, and then we can take the car, and then when we come back we have to do the same thing, show our alcohol intake as well. So and then yeah, but if like again, this is everybody's experience, right? So if you're in a bigger city, you don't really need a car, but if you're like in a smaller suburban area like near the countryside, you're going to need a car to get around, because waiting for the bus for every other hour or taking an hour bus everywhere, it's time consuming.
Yeah, there's like been situations where I've had to wait like 30 minutes for the bus to come, and I'm just like, class is over. Like especially at my elementary school, like you get out at like, was it 2:45 or like 3, whatever, and it's just like everybody's gone to like sports practice. Some of the assistant teachers have gone home, and it's just me. I'm waiting for the bus. I got like 45 more minutes. There's also a few times where during my fourth year, I lived because I moved my apartment. I moved
Hmm.
apartment because my board of education moved to a different building. So they're like, we want you to move closer with us. And
Hmm.
so like I ended up taking my bike majority of like the way to like my schools. And I remember a couple of days just riding in the snow. Like it would be snowing, windy and cold, and I would just have my gloves and like have my scarf, and I would just
Oh my god.
hopefully like I make it safely to my destination.
I heard some stories from other LTs, like they will walk in like in a snowstorm or a blizzard and walk to school, and the school will be closed like an hour.
Yeah. Like no one tells them when they have to like.
Yeah, like they didn't get any information at all. I'm like, I feel really bad, and but at the same time, I feel really good because I get really good communication between me and my supervisors. So.
That reminds me, like I remember back in my first apartment, I would have to walk to the bus stop area where all the junior high school kids get picked up. So I would take the bus with them. And this one day, it was around like I think in the summer where we had typhoon days. And so with typhoon days, like the kids stay home until like maybe 10 or 11, or like afternoon they come back to school. So I was walking there, And then one of the teacher, he was a history teacher. He was also like the disciplinarian in the school. And so he was driving his car. He was just like, Chi-chan sensei, like, go home. Like, there's a typhoon. And I'm just like, what? And he was like, yeah, there's no bus. There's a typhoon. Like, and I was like, oh my gosh. Like, I walked 10 minutes and like no one told me. And so,
Wait, did he drove in his car?
yeah, he was driving his car to like just basically check to see if any students like showed up at the bus stop,
Oh,
tell them like, hey, go home, come back later. But thankfully, like the Board of Education was
uh-huh.
just like literally like 3 minutes walk from where I
hmm
was. And so I was like, okay, I guess I'll just head to the Board of Education. Like, I'll just
Yeah, that's good. And you don't have to walk all the way back.
yeah.
I feel bad for you, but but then I'm also glad I don't have to kind of go through that. So I'm very sorry for that.
It's okay. I mean, it wasn't that bad. Like it was super windy and kind of raining, but like I'm glad somebody was there to tell me like, hey, go back.
Yeah, what it's better. I think it's better than ice
And snow,
or we snow. I mean,
snow and
I love
rain.
oh no, I hate it when it rains and we have snow and everything will just be frozen later and you'll slip and kind of like injure yourself.
Mhm.
So yeah, I remember the last straw when I slipped and I'm getting a car. This is it. Like I'm done. And then when you got a car, your car slips as well, and you do it.
Uh-huh.
You end up doing a 180 or and so
Yeah, that's
um
fun.
yeah, it's not fun at all, and it's scary. So now I like as a California, I driving by the speed limit, not like
Mhm.
how in California we're going like 80 or 90 on the highway.
Well, I mean, the thing too with the car, at least you won't get run over. Like you have a lower chance of getting run over by other cars. I noticed most Japanese drivers, I'm not saying all of them, but I'm just saying the ones that I've
hmm
seen in my town, they only look one certain way. They don't look both ways. And so if you're going towards the direction
hmm
that they want to go to, or like the opposite direction, and like if you're going this way, right, and their head is
Yeah,
turned this way, it's like they're not going to see you, and they just pull out, and you're like, whoa.
yeah. Sometimes you gotta be very careful on the street.
Yeah,
And for some reason, everybody's like in a hurry to go somewhere.
they
It's
gotta.
like I noticed, like
If you're on
yeah,
time, you're
like
late. That's the thing in Japan. If you're on time, you're late.
I'll be coming back from my school, which is about 10 minutes away from the BOE, to return the car,
Mhm,
and there's this road that we take, and everybody always behind me is just always going to the other side and cutting me. I'm like,
mhm.
what you're in a hurry for? Like, it's a small ass town. There's like, well, I'm like, I don't get it. But apparently, yeah, Japan people do this like same thing we do in America. If you're going slow, then they're gonna cut you off.
Yeah, it
So
can
like,
be
yeah,
fun.
with
Yeah.
oh yeah, go ahead and finish.
Oh no, I was just gonna say like if you ever get a chance to like be the passenger in a car in Japan, it's fun to just sort of like observe just their like your driver's driving skills.
I haven't be a passenger as much, but I think other friends has experienced me being the driver. So I think I kind of integrated, or it's just me from my bad driving from California. So
It's very surprising. Like there's been a lot of times where me and my co-LTs or ex-co-LTs would just be so
mhm.
surprised and mesmerized by how like our supervisor or like teachers that pick us up to go to their schools, just how they can like navigate on a really tight road with another car coming the opposite way. Like they
Yeah,
barely squeeze through, and like on the other side of you is like a ditch or like a drop, and you're just like, oh gosh, I hope they
yeah, like yeah, get out of the way, small car. We're coming through.
Yeah, or like especially because sometimes they have like those big vans, and the
Oh
driving,
yes,
like on those country roads, like super narrow, and
yeah, like a 1 lane, not a 2 lane.
yeah, and then like, or it's just like
Yeah,
one road, and you have to make space for the other car, or like if not, you just manage to squeeze through, and there's like a ditch. There's always a ditch
uh
on the
huh.
side, which they call it a gaijin trap, because gaijin like
Oh,
or always kind of just fall because we don't know
we
that.
don't have those here.
Not really, no.
Yeah, because I told that to my ex CIR, and we were driving. I'm like, told her about the guiding traps, and she's like, "What is that?" And I'm like, "Oh, it's not a thing here in Hokkaido." So, by the way, you guys don't know what gaijin mean. Gaijin means foreigner, which it's kind of more of a derogatory term. Like even gaijin people still use it.
Yeah, well, now that I think about it, it's like us taking that word and putting it, I guess, like on a positive note, like So when we like say it, it's not like a negative term. It's more of like a funny reference, or like for example, like gaijin. That's a funny reference, or like gaijin is just like, oh hey, like foreigner.
Oh yeah, no, I even call other people like gaijin too. I think it's kind of like our ethnicity Hmong, because like in China, Hmong or like Miao was a derogatory term, but we took it back and kind of use it as freedom. It means
Yeah,
freedom
yeah.
now. So there's that correlation. That
Wait, did you explain what a gaijin trap was?
a guiding truck.
Trap, a gaijin trap.
Oh, trap. Oh yeah, a guiding trap. I think you explained it. It was like a little ditch, right?
Yeah, so it's like ditch. It's like a little ditch at the side of the road.
Uh huh.
And they have it basically almost everywhere, maybe except in certain parts of Japan. But it's just basically like kind of like a sewer system, or like when it rains or whatever, like it allows the water to kind of go to the side, so like streets don't get flooded. Like
Is it one of those like water drains that we have in the States, right?
kind of, but it's not covered. Like
Oh.
it's not really covered, and then
Oh, like with in the States, it has a grill cover, but here it doesn't.
yeah, so it's like
That's so scary. Like, why would they do that?
it's like, how do I explain this? It's just, yeah, depending where you go, sometimes it's
Hmm.
very like deep. Other times it's kind of like not that deep. And so if you fall in it, it's not that bad. But other times, like if you fall in it, sometimes it's like very dirty, or there's like water. And sometimes if you're lucky, you could find like turtles like just chilling in
Oh,
there. Yeah.
oh, wow, that's interesting. I
There
guess
was one
Ninja
time.
Turtles actually exist in Japan. Then I guess.
There was one time where I went to a Christmas party at
Uh
one of
huh.
my ex-co LT's house, and like out there in the countryside, it's very dark, so they don't really
Hmm.
have a lot of lights. And so we were walking back to the train station, and it was like super dark, and there was this giant ditch on the side where we were walking.
Oh.
And so there was like, I think there was like 4 or 5 of us, and so we were kind of walking like in a straight line,
Hmm.
like there was like one person on my left, one person on my right. Oh no, sorry, I was the person at the edge, right? And so I was walking, and then I was like, oh, like I can't see because it's too dark, but I think this is like pavement. And then as I got closer, I saw it. It was just like I saw the pavement, and I saw something that was like super dark, and I was like, that was a gaijin trap. It was like a deep ditch, and I almost stepped into it.
Oh.
And so it's just like you got to be careful, especially at night, because you don't want to fall into
You can
that.
yeah, you can fall. That's very dangerous. Okay. I'm glad I'm here in Hokkaido. I guess snow is not that bad.
It's just like it's like if you imagine like a road, and then at
Hmm.
the edge of the road,
There's
like
a hole or something
the
on the
curbs
side.
are missing, like the curbs, for the
Oh
sidewalk.
yeah,
Then
yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's just like it's like that part's missing, and then somebody dug an additional hole, so it's like for water to like drain through. So sometimes they'll have like little small coverings, but other than that, it's mostly open. Yeah, so that's what a gaijin trap is.
Yeah, thank God I'm not there. So, I mean I don't know what's worth that or the 180 that I have done. So, with that, a question for you is what's lifestyle or like life outside of work? Is it hard making friends, and how was it like learning Japanese on your own?
It was kind of hard on both. So like social life, it depends. Some English teachers or ALTs there, assistant language teachers, they have like an active life out there. Like they'll be, active like doing sports, bike like cycling, have a lot of friends to travel with, like in like local friends that they spend time with. But there are those that maybe don't like that lifestyle, or they just for some odd reason that's not their lifestyle, even if that's something they would like.
That's me. I'm raising my hand right now.
Yeah, and like for me, yeah, for me, like as much as I try to be social with my co-ALTs or like the other ALTs from the different cities near me in my prefecture, it just felt very surface level, and I just felt like I wasn't able to get the kind of relationship that I wanted from like the kind of friendships I wanted from those around me, even with the local Japanese community members, because it's just like either you just felt like you didn't really relate to them, they couldn't connect with you for some like unknown reason, or you just have very different goals, very different values, and that's something that I wish I had really understood. Like it's okay if you don't like vibe well with these people or mesh well with certain people because you have different values, different goals in life. um and even like the Japanese people there, they have a difficult time trying to like socialize as well because they have such a heavy work culture. that their life is mainly just work, and then if they do get some social time, it's with their coworkers after work in the after work party. So for me, it was like as much as I tried, it just didn't really like I didn't really have that many friends, and it was very lonely, and it was also very challenging to sort of like try to
Yeah,
make
I'm
friends.
actually going through that right now, connecting with other ALTs again. Everybody has different goals. Everybody has different values. My co-ALT, she loves to ski. I think she goes out every weekend or every other weekend to go ski, and I'm here at home cleaning my house every weekend. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna just stay home. So yeah, it's a little hard. But then again, one of my great friends said that it's what you make out of it. For me this year, that's one of my things. I'm trying to make, okay, how can I make indoors a better thing? Can I invite more people to my house and play
Yeah,
board games? Should I do more online virtual meetup?
that phrase too, like it's what you make out of it, like make the most out of it. And as much as you try to, sometimes it just doesn't
Yeah.
work as well because of your environment, your situation. And unfortunately, like the issue with like maybe trying to socialize or create like friendships with your the ALTs near you, or just with like your local
Hmm.
community members. The other really unfortunate situation is the fact that it's also kind of based on how you look, in the
Yeah.
sense of like, do you look like a typical foreigner? Do people think you're a foreigner? Do people believe you're a foreigner? And how do they treat you if you are a typical foreigner that they've seen in the media, or if you are or if they do acknowledge you as a foreigner, like how do they treat you? And so for me, I've been in situations where other ALTs, they wouldn't think that I'm from America, that I'm actually a foreigner. They would just think I'm another Japanese person that's friend with like one of the other typical looking foreigner ALTs who's just, wants to tag along because I want to practice using English. And
That's
so they just wouldn't
so
talk to
bad.
me until they find out, like, wait, where are you from? And I'm like, California. And they're like, really? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, well, we thought you were Japanese. Like, your English is just really good. And we're like, maybe you studied abroad, or maybe you studied really hard. I'm like, no, like, I'm a foreign ALT just like you. And then in the opposite side as well, where like Japanese people wouldn't believe that you're a foreigner because you don't look like the foreigners that they've seen in the media.
I have been through those moments too. Like some of the students they thought like I'm either Japanese or like Chinese or Korean, and I'm like, oh, I'm none of that. But then again, I'm also American. They're like, yeah, like how are you American and also like another? I'm like, that's a lot. That's a deep talk to you. I'm just gonna say I'm American. So
Yeah. Or like never, I don't know if this happened to you, but like a lot of times when I would say, "Oh, I'm Hmong," or like one of
mhm,
my Japanese friends who understands like where the Hmong people come from, they would explain, "Oh, she's Hmong," and then
yeah.
the other person be like, "Oh, are you from Mongolia?" Like, no, 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 no.
We get that so much too. Also in the States sometimes. I
Yeah.
think the word for Hmong in Japan is Mongsoku.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Mongolia.
so I would say, oh, I'm Musokijin and also Amerikajin. They are so confused. Our ethnicity, race, we're also Hmong. That's our culture and that's where we grew up. But our
Mm.
nationality on paper, we're American. For them, they don't really understand that. So yeah, because there's not much of a, you can say like a melting pot here, like America is.
Yeah, I don't know if melting pot is the best like
A
phrase
term, yeah.
word to describe it, but it's like diversity wise, it's not as diverse. And unfortunately, like if you are more towards in the countryside, they have less chance of actually like meeting with foreigners and getting a chance to interact in a foreign language. So it's kind of hard for them to comprehend. Like, how could you be from America but you don't look like the Americans that we see on TV?
Yeah, or on movies that we see, right? And sometimes they're just a bit confused and just takes a little time to explain to them. But then again, I feel like they're in the disbelief, like they feel like we're making this up.
Mm,
And also, there's like moments where here I will go to convenience, and of course they wouldn't like hesitate to talk to me because all they can see is this part, and they can see that I'm Asian or Japanese look. And I heard some other stories, some convenience store people will see like non-Japanese looking or the foreigner face. They kind of just froze. They don't know how to speak to foreigners. So
yeah.
this topic actually runs into the next question. So did you have any discrimination about being like API or anything?
I'm not really sure if
Mm-hmm.
discrimination is the best way to describe it. I mean, there are definitely like heavy biasm that I've seen and experienced. And which is really interesting is like if you look from their perspective, it's more like, oh, we're being inclusive. But then from our perspective, it's like we're also foreigners, but we're not included because we don't look foreign.
I feel like we don't like in a weird way. Like for me, sometimes I feel like I don't belong anywhere. It's that identity crisis. When you're in America, right? You're still saying I am Hmong or I am your ethnicity. They're still kind of not taking you that you're American. And then in Japan, you say, "Oh, I'm an American," but then again, they're like, "You're probably not American." But then again,
Yeah. I've had situations, the city that I was in, they would have their monthly magazines out, and on the front page, they would like to have something interesting to go on there that's like culture related. And so, year after year, where on the front page is a group of your typical looking foreigners, which is like our white counterparts. Kind of like, well, I was there too at that event, but like, how come I'm not in that picture with them? Like, I participated. I'm a local LT in this city. Like, how come I'm not in like on that? And then when people talk to you, they don't talk to like us. They talk to the more typical looking foreigner. They just don't acknowledge you, and it's just kind of like you're not a foreigner. You're just somebody in the background. Like there's also been a situation too where it's like because the beauty standards over in Japan is like very different. It's like very like more of like towards like pale skin, right? Like that's what's considered beautiful. Yeah, they want to be like tan, and but like I've had a couple situations where one of my supervisors, she was very like biased towards, the color of your skin and how you looked. And so I get dark easily in the summer. So my skin was like a lot darker, and my ex co-LT, she's like pale, like very pale. Like it's hard for her to get dark, right? And so my supervisor at that time would take whatever chance she could to compliment my ex co-LT, like, "Oh, your skin is so pretty." And then she would look at me and she wouldn't really have anything nice to say. She would just go quiet and she would just be like, "Oh, well, do your best." And it's just like, "What do you mean do my best? Like I put on sunscreen in the morning, but like that ignorance and also, that's how society, like their culture is, which is just very unfortunate. But like, yeah, it's not a very good feeling. And like you said, it really going through all that, like on multiple occasions throughout those 4 years that I was there, it really made me question my identity. And
mhm.
like how you said, like, oh, when we introduce ourselves, we say, "Oh, I'm American. I come from America," whatever. We don't really say, "Oh, I'm Hmong," because it's hard to explain where we're from so that they would understand. And so for me, saying like I'm American so many times and speaking English a lot or maybe Japanese, I started like losing some of my language skills with the Hmong language. I would forget how to use certain words. I would forget how to correctly pronounce certain phrases. Even when I came back, it was very hard for me to sort of like speak Hmong again because I was just speaking English and like speaking Japanese when I can. And also the whole thing was like, oh, I'm American. So it's like you kind of forget like your real identity and you kind of question who you are because of how people treat you as well.
Yeah, I noticed that too when I was speaking Hmong with like some friends or calling back to family, and I'm like, oh wait, I'm being a little bit slow with my Hmong. I should practice that too because it's a big for us for Hmong identity because there's not much of us here in Japan either, and it's hard to communicate because we are very very like spread out as well.
I've had situations too where Japanese people didn't believe that I was actually a foreigner, and just the change in their facial expression, and especially when they had like their kids there, and just the act of like ushering their kids to go talk to somebody who looks, physically like a typical foreigner, it really stabs at you. Like it breaks you down a little bit because it's like, what's wrong with me that like you won't allow you to talk to me?
It kind of hurts me sometimes too when you're treated
Mhm.
differently. Not dramatically where I'm at with my BOE, but sometimes I do wonder if am I being treated differently compared to my co-LT. I observe at the after work party they getting so close with the office people, but how come they're not talking to me? I guess they just have a lot of things in common and kind of just take with a grain of salt. But in the back of my head, I'm like, probably something is wrong with you. But
No, like honestly, like I've told you before, it's not you, it's the environment and the situation that you're in. It's still around you, enable that environment, that situation to
yeah.
happen over and over. And you and I, we've been in like those situations. And we do our best. Like we try to stay positive. We try to like make the most out of it. But at the end of the day, it's like sometimes your hands are just tied. You can try as much as you want, but if your environment, your situation, the people around you don't support you, it's really hard.
It's like out of our control and you can't really please anybody, right?
Yeah. To be honest, Kevin, when I was in Japan those 4 years, even though I met a lot of people and like I developed some friendships, I think there was only like really one person that I felt they weren't biased towards me and towards the other ALTs around me. Like I felt like they just saw me for me. They didn't, try to differentiate how they treated me compared to like the other ALTs. Like I feel like they just appreciated me for who I was. Like it didn't matter if I looked for or not, which is really sad. But at the same time, I'm just really glad that I had that person.
I mean, at least you had someone, right? At least
Yeah.
one person to like motivate you through. I do actually have my CIR. She's a great like supporter too. Checks up on us a lot too and give us information if anything we need to. So I'm glad to those who are actually helping us to be comfortable here. But like despite of all that, did you have like some moment did you enjoy like something that was very memorable?
There were a lot. Like I said, it's like 50-50. We experienced like the best of both worlds, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah, yeah.
And for me, like a lot of the joys came from the students because they're really sweet, they're
Mm-hmm.
positive, they're like just very caring a lot of the times. And sometimes they're kind to you, they're very sweet. And then of course, the coworkers and just anybody that has shown you kindness, that really means a lot. There was one instance where it was after Halloween and I had dressed up as blow up like T-Rex suit. I don't know if you can see like in this wall right here.
I think I
That big
can.
orange T-Rex, that blow up
Okay, I
suit.
think I see it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I did that at my junior high school and I wasn't really feeling the best. I just felt really sad, really down, like just really drained. And one of the students, I think she was a third year, like she's very quiet, but like she came up to me during lunch and like she came and she hugged me and she gave me the most gentle, fluffiest, most heartwarming hug ever. Like it was so gentle. That's the best way I can describe it. Like it was so gentle and it was kind of like the hug where it's like everything's okay. Like you don't need to explain yourself. Everything's okay. And like when that happened, like I just stopped and I was like, what's going on? But at the same time, I was like, it feels so nice just to like have this kind of hug. That was like one of my very precious memories.
Yeah, one of mine is actually the elementary school. I'm over there a lot. And I think two of them, one boy and one girl, always see me in the hall and they will stop me and they will always hug me. And they would say, Lo sensei daisuki. If you guys don't know, daisuki means either I like you very much or I love you very much. And when they say this every time, I'm like, I'm going to stay now in Japan because a lot of things are like just going through your head, right? Mental health here is not focused so much. And sometimes just seeing them going through this, I'm like, it's very heartwarming. So, but I love the students. They're amazing. They're sweet.
Especially too when you get there to the class and they're just like, oh, like so and so sensei, and they come running towards you.
Yeah, and I'm like
Hi.
6 feet, which is 182
Oh,
centimeters,
yeah.
and I'll tell them, okay, high touch if someone can grab. So they were just like, that's too high. Please bring it down lower. I'm like, okay, and it's just amazing to see them grow within like either 1 or 2 years.
Another situation that sticks with me, it's like really meaningful, is my first time at a work party ever. And it's basically, so like work parties in Japan is sort of like when all the workers, they
Yeah.
kind of like loosen up, they drink, they eat, they party, they like eat karaoke sometimes if they get that chance. Like I didn't know what a work party entailed because I've never really been to one. So it's like the guys would kind of stick together and the ladies would stick together. And I remember one of my English teachers, who was actually younger than me, he kept an eye on me. He made sure that the older teachers, the older guys, like the teachers, if they say something inappropriate, like, oh, let's go walking out on the beach out there, like he'll just be like, hey, what do you mean by that? Like, he watched over me when he could have just been like, okay, whatever, she's not my problem. Like, I don't really know her. I just work with her. Like,
that's very sweet of him.
And so it's just like he would make sure to shut them down.
Yeah.
And I didn't really understand that until I think a couple days later, where I was like, hey, like he was looking out for me. Like he didn't have to, but he did. And
Yeah.
a lot of like the foreign women that go overseas, they don't really know how people can be like. And so that means a lot to just have somebody watch over you, like a close coworker that you work with too. So Yeah, that was really important to me.
Going back to the experience part, because like with us, even though we're both American, we're both Hmong, a gender, we're both having a different experience with gender because hopefully we won't experience that. So, and with that, actually, recently, there's actually an article that came out with a previous chit somewhere in a different prefecture a long time ago. They were also like sexually harassed by one of the vice principals back then. And it took a long time for the prefecture to pay her back through like a civil lawsuit.
Yeah, you know what's interesting? Okay, so a little late, but trigger warning, full harassment. But yeah, I actually kept up with this story because I learned about it when I was still overseas, and I think that happened maybe a year or two before I actually went over. And there was two cases. There was like sexual assault with another ALT, and then there was like sexual harassment with the school's VP. Came out, and the victim Hannah, like she actually got some justice, but at the same time, it's like I feel like it was a slap to her face because the fine that her Board of Education, I think maybe it was like in Nagasaki or something like that, or
I think it was Nagasaki. I don't remember, but we'll probably pull it up to fact check on somewhere on the screen.
they didn't want to proceed through with her case, even though she was trying to like, you know, get the justice that she like needed, like she wanted. And
Hmm.
so it's just
It's
very
sad too
sad. Yeah.
because, I think in a way with programs like this, not saying names, imagine this one case, how many cases there has been, and how does this kind of show Japan itself? Because Japan is very good at advertising itself. But then when you have these kind of experienced people come here,
Hmm.
it's not what they think it is. And it doesn't show as much light. The badness doesn't show as much light as the good advertisement.
Yeah.
When I read that article, I felt bad. There should be justice. But then again, in Japan, you're a foreigner, not your problem. It's not your country, so go away or something.
There are, people out there that are fighting to change that, and as well as in Japan, which is also a good thing. And also with the whole mental health, because mental health is such a taboo topic in Japan, and but like there are people out there that are fighting to change that.
Yeah, I was trying to look into the national health care that we pay for. I emailed a lot of places and they're like, yeah, we don't take the national health care. I'm like, oh, that sucks. Even JET program has their version of a counseling, right?
Yeah, they have like a therapy sessions where you can do, I think, via Skype, or you can email, but it's like limited.
Is it with like professional?
Yeah, so they are professionally licensed therapists that you can speak with, and they speak English too, so that's a good thing. I tried it a couple of times and it didn't work for me. I didn't feel like I was getting the support that I needed and that I wanted. I switched over to I think BetterHelp for a while, but then that didn't really. It did kind of help me, but at the same time, I just felt like it still just wasn't hitting the mark for me. And plus, it was kind of expensive. I don't know if you tried.
Yeah, I tried BetterHelp. They trying to charge me for the course or something. I don't know. It didn't go through, and I just tell them, just give me back my refund. And at the end of the day, I feel like, oh, everything is money based. So we're not really getting the mental health that we needed or the help that we needed.
So like for those I don't know, in the JET program for like the ALTs, they do have like a free program that you can talk to like a therapist either via email, Skype at the time. I don't know if they changed it to Zoom right now because Zoom is like quite popular, but like at the time it was like Skype, email. I think it was like maybe also through phone call. But I mean it's free, but it's very limited. And so like for me, I think I could only email that therapist like 3 times. And once my 3 times were up, it's like I had to restart a new session.
Oh, that sucks. I think it's getting a little bit better now. There's more options now since with the Zoom and with the pandemic. I was looking through and there's websites of English speakers, therapists here in Japan now that you can have sessions with. It's getting a little better, but knowing Japan, a very slow pace.
It's not as openly accepted. Like it takes time for that positive change to occur,
Yeah.
unfortunately, as other countries as well.
Also, speaking of change, we have a question here from some of the viewers. Chi, does Japan prefer cash or card?
I love this question. We didn't talk about money stuff. That's a good question. Like, thank you to whoever asked that question. Yes, money is a very important thing. Majority of the places in Japan, 9 out of 10 times cash. It's not unusual to have like $500 equivalent in your wallet.
For some people who don't have that much in their bank, they will carry that much here.
Hopefully, like when you go work over there, you're employed like a good amount like of income each month. Like you're paid a good amount, so you can actually like take out that much money to have with you when you need to go like spend money over the weekend or go shopping or whatever. I think there are some places that do take cards, but majority of the time it is cash, coins, uh, no checks. no traveler's checks.
Yeah, no, there's no personal checks here. Cash is key here. I know that they were also introducing like debit cards, but people still don't know how to use debit cards here. So like every time I pull out my debit card out and they're like, "Oh, it's a credit." I'm like, yeah, sure. It's the same thing, I guess. It's hard to get a debit card here.
Yeah, but I've heard that they prefer credit cards
Yeah.
over debit cards.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah. It's okay if you use like a Japanese credit card, like they're more open to using that, like accepting that, but majority of the time it's still like cash. And also they don't do tipping, do not tip, they will chase you down, they will give you back your money, they do not accept tips.
I think that's one of the amazing thing about Japan, how they don't tip,
Yeah.
and I don't feel guilty. But going back to the States, I'm like, yeah, we got a tip now. I'm like, here's like $5, $10. But there's a big culture shock. Yeah, where they will run down and try to find you, even if you left something behind.
Yeah. The other thing too with like regarding like I guess money stuff, like when you go shopping at the stores in Japan, the tax is included in the price that you see on the like you don't have to like add tax, like consider tax. Like how much is this after tax? It's like the price you see is the price you're gonna pay.
That's amazing because you kind of know how much you're spending already. So you'll always know how much you're paying. I'm not sure when you were here, did you guys use something called PayPay?
I heard about that, but I didn't use it. I don't know if anyone else that used it when I was there.
Okay, so well, I'm using it because when I came here, it was just so difficult to get a debit card. JP Bank, which is the Japanese post office bank, when I came, they didn't have a debit card. They had this something called Meiji card or something like that, but it was a prepaid card where you load money into it. It's kind of like a Visa gift card, one of those things, right? But then they canceled that because of fraud and stuff, and then they reopened their own debit card system. So I applied for it, and I got one now. But then again, before that, it was just so difficult. So they would use there's virtual debit cards, which is Line Pay. They have that, and they have Mercari Pay, which is the Mercari app where you sell stuff. And they have like a virtual Mastercard. Like they have other sorts of payment too. They have something called PayPay, which is like a QR code pay. 7-Eleven takes it. Only some places will take it. Some places won't. Like the doctors, like in the States, they will take credit card in the States, but here they're just taking cash. It's interesting how Japan is known for being a store which is very convenient. And then doctors here, they don't have like some kind of like electronic pay here.
Yeah, at the same time too, like ATMs, they will charge you after hours. So they'll charge you like 100 yen after hours. So like at least the ones that I had to use, like the local ATMs, they close at 6 p.m. So if you use the ATM after that, it's like, hey, we charge you 100 yen or basically like $1. As well as on the weekends. Like on the weekends, the ATMs are available, but they charge you automatically like $1 or like 100 yen.
Yeah, and sometimes when your bank is closed, you gotta go to like a 7-Eleven, they'll charge you $2. Even more for like international. But yeah, you want to shout out anything before we end the podcast?
I'm really grateful to be here for the first episode, like first guest for this podcast. And Kevin, I'm really proud of you too for having this podcast. And I'm really glad that you went through with it and excited to see just how it's going to progress over time.
I can't take all the credit. Like there's a lot of people who push me for this and people who support me. So yeah, and you're one of them. So thank you for doing this as well.
Yeah, well, thank you too. I hope that the listeners are able to take away good information from here. And I hope that it widens their perspective as well. I guess before I go, like just one thing I want to say is like, be more mindful of those around you. Be more mindful of what they might be going through and be more considerate. Include them in, like, just include them in so that, make sure that everyone's like okay, because when everyone's okay, like there's peace. So basically from my experience as an English teacher in Japan, like it would have made my time a lot more positive if I had people around me that included me and like made sure that I was okay during really like difficult times. But other than that, it's like, I'm working on a blog about my experience in Japan as well. And I'm also a copywriter. So if you want to follow me on Instagram, where I share more of my stories, my username is chi.chang.copywriter, chi.chang.copywriter. And if you know anybody that's looking for like help with like emails, websites, trying to sell products, let me know. I'm open to taking to like 1 or 2 clients. So yeah, but other than that, like I'm just really grateful to be here. Thanks, Kevin.
Maybe when this podcast takes off, I will be probably one of your customers.
I would love it. Like it would be an honor.
It'll be great. But yeah, other than that, anything else?
Just know that you can always be an ally to the person next to you, the person you're working with, the person you see, the people you communicate with. You can always be an ally and stay educated, whether it's like self-education or learning from courses or school, whatever. Just stay informed, stay educated, and be an ally, because at the end of the day, you're doing something good by being an ally, a good supporter.
All right, and that's the time for we have today. Again, thank you so much, Chief, for coming on to the podcast, and everybody who's listening. Remember to follow us on our social media. Everything is going to be in the link below. Again, thank you guys so much for listening, and Chi, thank you so much. See you guys next time.
Thank you.
Bye.